to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rennie?
Present.
Inman?
Here.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer? Here. Limco?
Here.
Lathrop?
Excuse.
I'm sorry, he's excused.
Excuse. Okay, first public comment. Since we have so much public that wants to make a comment, we will dispense with the reading of the public comment rules, if that's all right with everybody.
Oh, just fine.
Thank you. Next, we go on to the presentation of the annual report, which you have on your desk.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Morning, Jim.
I see you brought your
Good
right arm with you.
Yes.
I just woke up. No, I'm not really.
So this is a session for county equalization. The values that are before you are determined by county studies of assessments that happened last fall. Those levels of assessment were agreed to by township and city assessors. And when their data come in at the March board review, all the assessors met the assessment levels as determined by the studies last fall. Bear in mind that this is a report on ad valorem parcels. None of the special assessments are included in this report. It's all ad valorem or by value assessments. These levels have been equalized by the township, so to speak, at their March board review. Now you're equalizing them at the county. And the state will equalize on the 27th of May this year, preliminary state equalization. And that would be an indicator at that time if for some reason they did not like the county equalized values. There has been no communication to me that there are any issues with the state employee, the assessment and certification division person that visits our office. There's been no indication that there is any problem with Grand Traverse County. Final state equalization, let's see. I'm sorry, preliminary was May 12th and final is the 27th. That's what it was. I believe a bulletin just came out today on that. I don't think I brought it up, but quite a task to put it all together, all the studies, and then working with the assessors, making sure they're coming back in. I appreciate the assessors in Grand Traverse County. They do a good job, I think, and I appreciate the staff that you've given equalization. There are a lot of new people on the staff, and I feel that this last year through the process we've come together real well as a team, and we work well together, and I do appreciate your support as a commission for our office. We'll just go right into the numbers. That's the beginning page on the last couple reports I've seen. I know you always seem to glance down to the bottom right-hand corner. That is the overall taxable value increase on page 5 there. And that overall taxable increase represents about $386,000 of general fund money. So that's an increase of about 77 million in taxable. So 1 mil would be $77,500, whoever is collecting. Tentatively, I don't see a millage rollback for the county. There appear to be a couple townships that may be rolled back, but that's just preliminary so far.
Jim, would you like to have questions on each page as we're going through?
That would be fine, yes.
Okay. Chris?
When do you anticipate you're going to know what townships are going to have or may be subject to rollback?
Well, when do you anticipate?
We already have that information. It's going to be 8 Long Lake and 9 Mayfield. So preliminary, haven't sent them out yet officially to the townships.
Okay.
We've got the 4028 done, which is the millage rollback coverage.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
I assume you've been in contact with the assessors in Long Lake Township about their rollback?
Not yet, no. That officially will go out shortly. It's in the process.
Angela won't be excited.
I have a question about the parcel count being down. Looks like almost, 280 parcels that you have less?
Well, I noticed that also, and I do know that there were some parcels that were condominiumized, and then they took them out of a condominium and made them one parcel again. And I think I'll have to admit that the parcel count is a little bit elusive with some of the exempts, the way they're categorized in the program, and to find a consistent parcel count from year to year, I haven't quite got there yet. So we will see a parcel count further down in the presentation, and we could kind of look at that. Let's see, if that's on page 14. Total. I think a lot has to do with how the exempts are being picked up on page 5. So that's something we're trying to track a little better. The program has become so complex with all the legislative changes that have happened, and trying to get all the assessors on board with categorizing and coding things the same might add to that. But I do intend to pursue that count a little more accurate from year to year.
Looks to me like if you look at it, most of it, the drop was in personal property.
Right, that
Real
too.
property actually gained on page 6. The personal property went down.
The number of people that were paying with personal property.
Yeah.
Everything went down now.
So there's a lot of kind of influx things that make parcel counts a little bit hard to put your finger on. And it's to do with if the assessors are cataloging them as exempt or reference parcels or real or personal reference.
Yeah. Other questions? Dave?
Would the veterans' parcels, would those become exempt and not counted as parcels in this?
Well, we tried to guide them into leaving a real classification on there so they do count as a parcel, but then show a zero value, but that is part of it too. Some of them just made them an exempt parcel. So, yeah, there are all kinds of nuances that make the exact parcel count real hard to track. And yes.
Yeah, Jim, do we have an idea of how many veterans are taking advantage of this exemption countywide?
Yes, I put that information together. Last year, for 2013, retroactively, and as I look at my sheet here, I actually didn't put the counts on. I put value that's missing. I can get you the counts later.
Just a rough idea, I didn't.
Let's see here. For 2013, retroactively, about $8.6 million of taxable value disappeared in the county due to the veteran exemption. So far this year, there's just a little over $8 million applied for, but they still have the July and December boards of review to apply for that exemption. So I anticipate similar to last
Similar
year.
number, okay.
So, if I may, Jim, you're saying we already have 8 million, correct?
Correct.
And we have applications for another 8?
No, I meant
Oh,
that because
okay.
this was a retroactive legislation.
Yes.
That as of last December board review, there was $8.6 million lost out of last year retroactively.
Okay.
So far, the exemptions only tally up to about $8 million.
Okay.
And there are fewer exemptions, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact counts of exemptions, but But I anticipate that some of those, because they applied at December board review last year, think they're going to wait till December this year, maybe. I don't know.
All right, thank you.
What's the tax value of that, the taxes? At 8 point.
Well, let's see here, I think
General fund about 42,000.
yes, 42,000 general fund dollars.
Just 42,000 out of that?
Yes.
Well, that's,
And then the other funds,
That's general fund dollars, but then
Yeah.
all the other taxing agencies.
Right, that's just the near 5 mil general, little under 5 mil general fund
Okay.
millage.
plus the other agencies.
Right, a mill would be $8,000 reduction, 1 mil
Okay.
on that, so.
Any idea what the impact is for the whole state of Michigan?
No, I don't even think the state knows that.
Interesting. They're going to get it.
They're going to pursue some reports on that, according to Howard Heidemann from the state. Was at a director meeting just recently, so it's something they're interested in trying to catalog once we get them on our end, so.
Okay. Onward?
Well, and then page 6 does include a breakdown of how the real and the personal shook out. We didn't have that chart last year. Overall, we had the 1.76% increase, and when you break it out real and personal, you can see that the real is over 2% increase, but the personal brought it down. The reason there's a decrease in the personal is because of the small business exemption, the under 80,000 true cash value exemptions that were given. Grand total, just from the exemption itself, is about 22.6 million in taxable. That whole reduction is not reflected in this number because we actually had industrial values going, or I'll back up, utility values going up a little bit by discovering some more oil well property and better reported by the oil companies. So overall, the decrease from the small business exemption was about 8% of last year's value. But some of that value was made back up by new value and by the utility value.
Is that the Green Lake Township increase is because of the oil wells?
The Green Lake has an increase due to an IFT and some cherry grower stuff out there.
Cherry grower.
Grant had a pretty good increase in utility personal property because of some oil well discovery there.
Question, can you give me the dollar amount that is generated that the county collects for personal property tax annually, or for last year, or even this year?
You mean at roughly the 5 mil, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you have the breakout between the real and personal, so based on the personal taxable, what would be, you know, just a guess of what we would collect?
Looks like Dave's putting it in for me.
And I guess the reason I'm asking that question is if the state moves forward with some sort of legislation to say we're no longer going to have personal property tax in the state of Michigan.
Yay.
Yeah, that's his.
I agree.
Well,
Then, you know, to attract more business, I mean, I can see the opposite side of that is that, you know, would it attract more business and keep more businesses here? What is that amount that we would have to look at for like the immediate impact?
all of personal property, I think, is somewhere around 1.3 to 1.4 million.
Cash or
That's
Or
just, that's,
assessment?
no, that's how much our taxable value generates of our total taxable, or total tax revenue.
And that comes to the county?
Yeah,
1.6 million?
1.3 or 4.
Whoa, I didn't know it was that high.
We don't keep all of that in the general fund, though, because of the taxes that are captured by brownfields, TIFs.
Yeah.
The list is pretty long. And historically, the personal property tax prior to 2014 has been 5% of the tax revenue, give or take.
Interesting.
And there is a phase out through the next 20 to 30 years planned, and there are preliminary guidelines on how that's going to happen, and how maybe there is a hold harmless payback.
You'd hope. We would hope.
Pardon?
I'd say we would hope.
Yes, and the one thing I've noticed so far is that for the small business exemption, they're trying to calculate the loss there. And they're trying to take this before and after snapshot, and on the surface it seems fair, but if you've picked up more value, then it appears that you're just, even. Where if you calculate the reduction from the actual form filed, then you have a reduction. But then the last time I heard, they're going to add in another caveat that they're going to exclude from the before and after aggregate calculations class changes. Properties going in or out of the class, they're just going to try to compare number to number, so it's a fair compare, and maybe that'll help not look like we're on an even playing field, and that there was a reduction from this exemption. So a lot is in the way they decide to calculate it.
It's all about how they push the numbers around.
Right.
Back in the late 60s and the early 70s, they didn't collect personal property tax for a number of years, and then they reinstated it and started doing it again.
Got it.
And about 15 years ago, they changed the depreciation schedule and accelerated it so that it went away a lot faster, which meant that the county's revenue dropped a lot faster.
Right, and that was also on windmills recently, and one equalization director is going to look pretty good through this because of the huge depreciation of his windmills. The before and after calculation may look pretty good for him. We'll see how it shakes out.
But as far as the 40,000 taxable, 80,000 assessed exemption that occurs, what do you calculate that loss to be?
That loss was 22.7 million in taxable.
Okay.
And you're talking dollars? I think I did the dollars.
1.1 million?
$113,000 out of the general fund. And
So even though we've lost from those two items alone, the veterans exemption and the reduction in personal property tax, the $40,000 exemption, we're talking about $155,000 in revenue to the general fund, and we
Right.
still are going to see an increase of $370,000, you said?
overall, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not counting the special acts, and those are up substantially overall in the county. So, depending on how you collect your money against the special acts will determine what the overall revenue will be, but this report's ad valorem, and the special acts is up also, so that would add to it.
Okay.
I put in
Go ahead.
I put in a chart just showing a 10-year history, and it's curious because our 2014 numbers have exceeded the 2005 numbers now and are approaching the 2006 numbers in SEV. And part of Proposal A, you can see what's happened is the taxable value in the orange. You can see how that's somewhat been stable. It hasn't peaked, dropped, and is peaking again. And so you can see that our taxable value is close to a 2009 level because it's kind of hung on and is capped. So even though the assessed is at a 2006 level, the taxable value far and exceeds the taxable value of 2006. Now, from 2007 forward, we have not had any millage reduction rollback for the county. I couldn't find data on 5 or 6, but through that stretch, the millages remain the same, and taxable, even though it had a little dip, is still held right in the 4.4 million area. This slide here shows each unit, so you can get a comparison unit by unit, what their assessed and taxable values are. A lot of state land in Union and no villages or city grant down in the corner. Next page is just a pie chart of the same numbers to give you another visual of size of each unit by assessed. Actually, county equalized is what we'll call it, which is what the assessor's assessed at, what we're equalizing at today. And then the next slide is just the taxable values in a pie chart. On page 11, this is a one-year comparison by each unit. So you can see what each unit has done compared to the previous year. There are 4 units that are on the negative side of the line. Those units are all 3 on our eastern border, and then the 4th is on our eastern border, southern border, one off. So kind of an L shape along the east and the south.
What do you attribute that to? Because that's my district, and the last couple of years where things have seemed to have stabilized, Fife Lake, Paradise, Union, some of these
These are
continue to decline.
These are based on sales studies that are in the residential class, and sometimes even though there are not a lot of sales to measure, I think we kind of measured what was happening. And I think the biggest thing is the like the residential hunting land and stuff like that took a serious value decrease when people's income dropped a while back, and maintaining a second property maybe wasn't as valuable as it used to be. And so there were some land decreases in these areas. Now the ag land seemed to maintain its value or have slight increases in some areas, but it's the large residential parcels, and they're still suffering from the foreclosure market, competing with that. There's still some of that to clean up yet. So hopefully, we'll see stuff on the positive side all the way around.
Jim, have you ever done looking at if a township or a city gives a tax break to a business, what kind of an effect that has on increasing the amount of labor that's coming into the community, and in comparison to a township that may not give those tax breaks?
Well, I don't know if that's something John in planning would kind of tackle. I know we have not in equalization, but we've been work sharing one of our employees with planning, and he picks my brain occasionally, and that sounds along the lines of what they look for, in planning and development.
I know there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not a township or a city should be giving those kind of breaks, and then because they don't know what the value of it is. I know Garfield has got quite a few pilots out there that, they keep wanting to know what impact that has in their township, and then what is it costing them, and whether or not they can do more, or whether they should do less. So, and I think that's one of those issues that might be an interesting discussion to bring about. So, Chris?
Well, on that note, Garfield is holding businesses accountable as well.
Oh, they've changed their rules on their
You know,
reporting.
if a business says that they're going to have 50 employees or create 50 jobs, they're holding businesses accountable.
Yeah, they are. So,
Yeah, a lot of,
and they have rescinded one just recently.
Right, yep. A lot of what's going to happen in the future does depend on the jurisdiction and how well they police what is happening. I know from past experience.
So other townships could copy what Garfield's doing and make it more impactful, I think. Yeah.
Page 12 is just basically the equalized value by class. You can see our residential class is by far the largest. And one thing that surprised me was the agricultural class was pretty small when I got up here. I anticipated something a little bigger, but
Most of that's in our southern townships. That has less value.
well, yeah, that's true. There is a substantial amount, though, of the grapes and orchards,
No?
you know, around the bay and
Okay.
Yeah.
a lot of the conservancy areas on the peninsula are agriculturally classed, so,
Even, are they taxable, the conservancy?
yes. We do make a study, if they're encumbered by a conservancy, we try to study what effect that has on value, and we found that if it's encumbered by a conservancy, there's a slight reduction in the sale price, but not a lot. I think we had ag land in the peninsula at like $13,000 an acre if it was unencumbered by the conservancy, and 11,000, does that sound right? An acre if it was in the conservancy. And you kind of have to watch, because even if they're in the conservancy, sometimes they reserve maybe 1 or 2 developmental rights and kind of attribute value accordingly. It's a tricky beast to study. We learned that the first year up here. So. Okay, page 14. That's the overall parcel count in totals, and let's see here. 4, okay.
Does that match the GIS?
Well, let's see here. 55,798. Minus the exempt parcels.
Pretty close.
54, yes, 385. It does match. I worked hard at trying to get the assessors to be more uniform this year, and I'm kind of questioning if some of the parcels last year got coded as a taxable parcel and it shouldn't have, but it'd just be a minor difference in each township, if any, based on the way they were coding them. We're working on trying to unify the classes and the way they code things. I know that when I got the database built from the assessor's database, and I gave Ernie the green light to hook up to it and start his map layer, I could feel the floor rumble a little bit, because some of the assessors don't quite want to be uniform, but we're working through that and we're getting better, and it makes it hard for GIS if assessors won't class property with the same codes. Some assessors want to kind of make up their own code number to keep track of a certain amount of parcels, and that throws a lot of things out of whack. So we're working hard at that, and that'll make our GIS even better.
And then we had that discussion with GIS as to how important it is for other departments. It sounds like there's a valuable interlink between you and that department.
Yes. Well, it was formed in equalization, and it was out of the necessity of equalization, actually, and then when it went into, a more rounded use, then they were made their own unit. The next several pages will take each unit by each class, and it will show what the assessor's ratio is after meeting the study criteria. And if you see a number that's not between 49 and 50, and you can include 50 even and 49 even, so inclusive, if you see a number in any of those that are not between there, we should be talking right now. because we are certifying to the state at this time that each of those units in each class is on or between 49 and 50.
You mentioned that Long Lake Township would have a rollback, but I don't see it here.
The rollback is a separate calculation that goes beyond this reporting of taxable value. So those forms will be coming out shortly on the 4028, the form that comes after what we've done so far.
Jim,
Yes.
on your parcel count, the page 14 has, I did some math, quick math here, and it equals the number on page 5. Do you have the exempt number from 2013?
I would have that in the previous equalization report.
I have to check that.
But even that exempt number I've had to work on this year because some parcels, the assessor will sometimes put on a parcel for a condominium that shows what the condominium would be valued as a whole. It's not something done in other counties. It was foreign to me, but then they'll go ahead and just put that parcel to a zero value, and it's just kind of a reference parcel. Well, some assessors were calling those exempt parcels and getting added into my exempt account, and I had to have them change that to a reference parcel, so it's mostly really for their reference. And, you know, parcel by parcel, 55,000 parcels, you know, you keep combing through and you keep finding better ways to do things, but it, you know, it's a work in progress.
Okay.
So the last 3 pages, starting with page 20, is the official L-4024. That's a state form. It's a form that is required to be filed. I have applied to file that with an e-file, so it's actually been loaded to the state. These values were printed off the website at the state, and when these are approved, then I will hit the submit button on an e-file form at the state.
So I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Charlie, support by Thomas. Any other discussion? Do we do a roll call on this, or the voice? All right. Probably.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Inman,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Lemko.
Yes. Motion's carried. Is there any other questions on this report?
Well, I would like to offer that if anything seemed confusing, or if there was anything else I could add that would be of benefit to the commission, I'd be glad to add it in future editions.
I would like a copy of this report for Garfield Township. I can drop it off today.
Okay, I could email it if you'd like.
Or just email it to them, I guess. That would make
Okay.
it easier.
We-
If you want to just email it to all the townships, I think that
We can
makes
do
it our
that.
job easier.
And the city.
That's, yeah, that way. we don't have to-
And the city.
And the city,
Thank you.
yeah. And the villages. I mean, you know, I think it's for everybody that's all the taxing. If we could just send out that this has been approved by the Board of Commissioners, and this is your report, and
Is that something you want me to do, or from your office, Dave?
Go ahead.
Okay.
thank you.
There's delegation.
Jump on in there.
Chris is just having some
Delegation.
challenges with their emails, so that's a good thing. So, is there anything else to be brought before this group?
I just think it's ridiculous that we have a meeting tomorrow night, and we have to do this that first Tuesday after the
Well,
second
speak
Monday
to the-
mandatory thing. It's just
Well,
absurd.
I do know that other counties found a way to do it on more regular meeting times. and-
We've talked about this for years, but to have to hold a special meeting
Our
on the first
prosecutor
Tuesday.
says, our county
The first Tuesday
prosecutor
after the
has to
second
do this.
Monday is just ridiculous to have
But
to
they
do
call it
special
a
meeting.
regular meeting date, so it makes me wonder if you didn't have a resolution saying, instead of this day being our regular meeting date, we're going to
Well,
have this day.
I would ask that we look at that, because I think it's, you know, it's foolish to have to call a special meeting to come in and review the report. You know, not that we mind seeing you, Jim, but it is a little
No, and
ridiculous to do it.
I offer that that's fine with equalization also, yeah.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comment. Seeing the public rushing to the podium, I will close public comment and
Motion to
for
adjourn,
return.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, Bonnie and Jim, this is signed.
Okay.
That's statutory requirement that you have to hold it the first Monday after the second Tuesday, or the first Tuesday after.